Match reaction time. United Burnley, September 2nd, 2018. United's had another very strong performance, another one, just like last week. Knock me for that later. But United's done very, very well. I'm going to talk about the performance a little bit after I talk about a burning issue I must talk about, and that's Marcus Rashford's red card. I think that I'll give you my take and then bigger opinions. Bardsley's kicked him, which is violent conduct in itself. Purposely kicked him off the pitch. I tell you what, if you're walking down the high street and someone comes up and kicks you, what happens? Okay, wasn't a challenge. The ball was far gone. It was off the field of play, and he's kicked out at him. It's a red card. Okay, Rashford's gone up and aggressively put his head to him. Poor decision making, but the referee's got to do a better job of protecting these players. And I'll get back to that in a bit. Okay, if he gets a yellow card, okay. If he gets a red card, okay. Bardsley has to get a red card then. And not only that, I think the referee saw this in the aftermath of that. Bardsley's then, after the initial engagement, he's gone back and moved his head towards Rashford, which is a red card. So, Bardsley's got 2 red cards there, and Marcus Rashford has 1. If you're going to give Marcus Rashford a red card, by definition, you're giving Bardsley a red card for the same engagement. And you can go back and look, there was that head, Bardsley moved his head towards Rashford after the initial engagement when he engaged the second time. Okay, so the bigger issue for me here is the fact that Bardsley's on the pitch with a yellow card, which is disgusting. If he would have given both a yellow card and said, knock it down. But I still feel like the initial kick, him striking out wasn't a challenge, wasn't a foul. The kick is a red card, and that needs to be looked at by the Premier League. Not only that, we need to do a better job at protecting players than that. I'm not talking about in the challenge. I'm not talking about tough. That is violence. That's an assault. Okay? And we don't do a good enough job at protecting any flair players like that in England. If that happened in Spain, if it happened in Italy, if it happened in Germany, yeah, you could say the Premier League's more physical, more tougher. Absolutely. I love the 50-50 challenges. Kick someone up in the air, go through the ball, no problem with that. But when you're striking out at someone off the field of play when the ball's gone, that is violent conduct, and that needs to be looked at. It makes me absolutely physically sick that Bardsley's staying on the field and Rashford's off. Let's break down individual performances, then I'll go group, then I'll go team. United again, the way the arrow's going. I thought Smalling was extremely competent and good today. Lindelof, I didn't really notice him, which for a defender is actually quite normally a positive sign, right? He obviously didn't do anything much wrong. Now we did dominate the game. Our possession at times was fluid and brilliant, by the way. But what I thought was more interesting than anything, if you look at Antonio Valencia, who's your right back here, okay? And if you think about him being a former right winger, you'd expect him to get down the wing quite often. He did not get into any crossing positions today. Now you may say, oh, that's a negative. No, absolutely not. Not in this case, because Luke Shaw was up and down that line and given a lot of freedom. And then Matic in here, if you notice, would always just creep that way when Luke Shaw had gone. Okay? Luke Shaw's playing brilliantly right now, but that was a plan for Mourinho. Mourinho knew that, and he told Valencia to stay more. Okay? Matic was really, really good in there. Pogba was really good. And Fellaini, I'm just going to draw the 3. I know they weren't quite like that. But Fellaini doesn't get enough credit for me. He was an absolute rock. And to be fair, you didn't really see him, again, which could be looked at as a negative, but we were dominating. And he was by design there to win the aerial battle and come up with the second ball, which when we went down to 10 men and they started to put the ball in, now Burnley were terrible. We started to put the ball in. Fellaini made a lot of very good interceptions, very good challenges. He was extremely good. I'll tell you this now, if Jesse Lingard was Spanish, if Jesse Lingard was French, if Jesse Lingard was any other nationality apart from English, we would be talking about him being, we talk about him in a much bigger sense, because he's getting that good. His creativity, his decision making, his movement, his skill is so good. We're really seeing something special here at United now, because you're seeing someone that was not, he got a big contract, not a big contract by comparison to like Pogba, etc., but or Lukaku or Sanchez. He got a big contract for someone that they thought was a squadman. He's not a squadman. He is a Manchester United player, and he's a really good one at that, and I'm so happy for him. I thought Sanchez was decent. I think he's really become, he's going to get more, he's going to get better and better. Technically, you can see how good he is. The assist on the first goal was world class. He looks a little still like he's coming into it. His fitness, sharpness, match sharpness is not quite there, but he was fantastic. And Lukaku's a beast. Yes, he looks a bit like Emil Heskey in disguise at times, but he is. You saw him when Pogba put him through that exceptional ball when we were down to 10 men, just how strong, how fast, how scary he is. Imagine trying to defend against that. It'd be an absolute nightmare. You ask any defender in the Premier League, I guarantee they don't enjoy playing against Romelu Lukaku. No way. He probably gives them nightmares. So as individual performances, there was a lot of solidness going on. The ones that don't really get the plaudits probably did a much better job than they will even get credit for. As groups, the defense was extremely strong. Their depth was a little bit higher than usual, but that's because we were dominating the game so much. They were very competent on the ball, and I thought Smalling led the line really well there, and I think him and Bailly could really complement each other. So that's exciting. Matic is an extremely underrated player. He's so good. Yep, he's not going to do anything out of the ordinary, but he's that 7 out of 10 you need every week in your team, and he'll give you that. He's very clever on the ball. He's very clever in his positioning. He's always looking to drop off and pick up the man that's coming short, if you will, which again maybe goes unnoticed a lot, but he's absolutely phenomenally good. So talking about that midfield and the way that Fellaini and Pogba moved off that, Fellaini sat deeper today, but I thought the midfield were extremely, again, strong. They played the ball quickly, they moved the ball quickly. It was a really good performance. And then the strike force, the movement and the interchange was good. It's still a little bit straight-liney. I'd like to see them, for example, the good save from Joe Hart. Lukaku's played the ball to Sanchez, run off the ball. The angles that Lingard took there, and even Lukaku took, even though he got onto the end of the ball, weren't great angles. They were kind of easy to defend. They're kind of flat. You'd like to see Lingard maybe swapping, the planes there. So, if you think of Lingard and his movement in that particular circumstance, you've got, and this is a drill you do with soccer. We're going this way here. I'm going up this time. But you've got Sanchez on the ball. You've got Lukaku that's knocked it to him, and then we'll get in there, okay? But you've got a really straight line run from Lingard. You'd want to see something like that. Essentially, if you're moving bananas in soccer, normally you're doing okay. And I just said earlier, Lingard's movement is very good. It's the spaces he finds that is good. It's the timing of the movement. It's not necessarily the movement itself. So if there's one thing I could say about United strike force, which you do see with City, you do see with Liverpool, it's the angles of the run that's can be a little bit flat at times. But I just think that's because they're not as close as them other teams too, as far as distance-wise. And again, that's because maybe we're not as good an attack right now as Liverpool and City, quite frankly. But I think that we can really get there. So the different groups are said as a team. The depth was good. The width was good. I love that we're getting width from our outside defenders a lot, especially Luke Shaw, obviously. And it's just a really, really good performance. Again, the performance against Spurs in the first half last week was the best performance I've seen from United in a while. And people will say, well, they lost the game, whatever. That's why we played the game over 38 games, or the league, One-off games like that is going to happen. They got a goal against the run of play, and maybe we went a bit sloppy for the next 5 minutes after that, but overall we battered a very good Tottenham team and played extremely well. And I really think that with all the panicking, with the ridiculousness that I've heard, a lot from, to be fair to Man United fans, and I was going to have a go immediately because I've heard a couple of people say, but when I've actually dug a bit deeper, United fans have been very positive around Mourinho. They're saying we're not Arsenal, we're going to stick by him. They're chanting his name. It's really, really good to see. I'm real happy about that. I'm proper happy that United fans are doing that. And I think that's Manchester United. And I think that the way we reacted to that Tottenham game is going to turn the tide for the club. we've got a really good run of games after the international break, and I think that we're going to have a really good time. I think Mourinho is the man for the job. I really do. People tell me there's been a lot said about him not being able to coach players, which is it's a ridiculous comment. But Pep and Klopp and City and Liverpool, it's just a complete. The media are just loving them right now, which is fair play. They're playing some nice football. It's very early still, but I get it. Okay, I understand that. However, you're talking about Jose Mourinho, 2 Champions Leagues, trophies, he wins games, not being able to develop players. I don't understand that. You're talking about the same guy that won the European Cup with Inter Milan, and their best defender was Marco Materazzi. Same Marco Materazzi that couldn't cut it for Everton in the Premier League. He was dire for Everton, actually. Mourinho turned him into a world beater, okay? You take Luke Shaw. You take Ashley Young. You take Jesse Lingard. I think that he's done a lot for Pogba's game. I know people are going to say, oh, what, Pogba's been terrible. Maybe that's controversial. I don't know, but I think he's done a lot for him. Maybe it does. It's not that controversial because Pogba played so well in the World Cup. But you're looking at 5, 6 players there that Mourinho has influenced positively. Yes, I think he's having a good effect on Marcus Rashford. Yes, I think Ander Herrera, the fact that he's around still shows you what kind of coach Mourinho is. And you can't say anything about Fellaini now other than he's a very competent Manchester United player. Yes, maybe he's not a starting player, but you can't have 18 starters, obviously, or 24 starters. You need players like Fellaini and Scott, and we're very lucky to have him. So I think that United, they're more fluid recently, they're more aggressive, they're pressing higher up. They're not full court press, they're not full out press, but they are pressing, they're pressing at the second ball. Okay, so you see they're not necessarily once the player's on the ball, they're just dropping off, and once that first pass is made from defence, then they press, and they press high, and they press flat out almost. You can't press flat out because Matic is... He's just on off, but even he's pushing that. But essentially, you look at pressing the way United have. Everyone has to do it, otherwise it doesn't work. You see City do it, you see Liverpool do it. But that's the reason why goalkeepers are so important. To me, this glorification of keepers playing with their feet right now, that's all said and well and good. But they've got to take up position when you're pressing too, because it's all a spatial game. It's a purely spatial game when you're pressing. And if that goalkeeper is not taking up the right positions and angles, the defence can't, the midfield can't, and the attack can't. So the last 2 games from United have been really, really good. And I am sure that they will progress from here and be very, very strong. And it's really exciting, actually. So I'm making this for the pig. Maybe he has different views to me, but I hopefully can bring a bit of tactical analysis to it. I've watched football in my life. I was an okay player. I'm nationally licensed as far as a soccer coach goes. I've done some badges. So I've got a decent foundation. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that someone that hasn't played soccer or football and hasn't got these badges wouldn't know what they're talking about. It doesn't mean that someone with a pro license knows everything either. It's a game of opinions, but hopefully I can put a little bit of kind of the positional, the groups, very big on groups of players and how that affects the game. So just one little tidbit, one tip if you are watching football from a point of view where you're interested in the strategies and the systems play and coaching, try not watch the ball all the time. Try and watch groups of players as well. It's not as fun. Well, no, I mean, I'm sorry, that's completely wrong. It is as fun, it's a different way of watching the game, but you were able to analyse more stuff that way than just watching the player on the ball. It's like you say, you should never coach the player on the ball, which is somewhat true, maybe not with the top level players. Maybe you should at times do that, but with youth players, you shouldn't really coach the player on the ball, allow them to make decisions and learn from them. But the groups is very interesting, and we'll talk about that more with United. I'll give feedback on England too if Pig wants me, and I probably will start my own little channel here. It's just a little passion project for me. If 20 people watch it, that's great, and if 20 people disagree with me, that's even better. Well, you know what I mean. All right, I'm signing off. Let's go with the tactician for now, and we'll go from there. All right, cheers.